Right, here we are. This is the photomatix interface. The first thing we need to do is to load 3 bracketed images, in this particular instance 3 raw files, but you can use JPEGs if you wish. I'm now looking at the folder for the picture which I need, which is this one. So that's the underexposed image, this is the normal exposure, and this is the overexposed image. So we open the 3 files together into photomatix, and it's going to ask us for various options. It was taken handheld, so it wasn't taken on a tripod, so we'll tick that box and it will align the pictures together. It's asking for options on removing ghosts, which we will need because there were people in the crowd, and you will get a certain amount of ghosting when people move when you're taking a slow exposure. We can ask it to reduce chromatic aberrations as well, just in case there are any of those, and then we'll align and create the actual HDR image. So as we can see, it's now took the pictures in there. It's now aligning them, and there's our image, which is ready for deghosting. You can either do it manually by selecting the areas where there are bits of ghosting in the picture, and as you can see, because you've got crowds, you've got movement, and there will be an element of ghosting which you can see where the crowd's moving, but I prefer to just do it automatically. So move the slider from none to very strong, and you'll see that the ghosting has been removed. Click OK, and our picture is ready to be imported to make the necessary adjustments for our HDR image. It's now merged into HDR, so it's done the deghosting and it's done the chromatic aberrations, and we're now ready to blend the 3 pictures together. Chromatic aberrations are being done now. Patience is a virtue with this software, unless you have an ultra fast computer, which I haven't got, but here it is. So this is the basic interface that we use doing our HDR pictures. Down the left hand side we have all the various different adjustment columns, the main display in the center here obviously, and along the bottom we have these presets which we can click on to choose various different effects. I prefer to have the presets on the right hand side, so if we just go to view and then come down to toggle preset thumbnails, as you can see the thumbnails have moved across the right, creates a bit more space, so if we just click fit, the image will take up the full size of the screen. So that's the starting point. So we've got 2 choices. We can either use the presets down the right here, or we can adjust the picture manually using these various different sliders. So let's have a look at the presets first of all. As you can see at the bottom here, we've got built-in presets and we've got my presets. In other words, the presets that you're going to make yourself and save for future use as templates. Let's take a look at the default picture. This is the one that's actively highlighted with the white border around it. This is the one that shows on screen at the moment. If we used to choose the balanced one, we just click on that. If we choose the photographic one, and so on and so forth, natural. So depending on the style of picture you're looking for, you could use your starting point with the actual presets themselves. There are about 15 to 16 presets that you can go through, or you can make your own. If we click on my presets at the bottom here, you'll see these pictures change, and these are the ones which I've created by using the adjustment sliders on the left. So that would be a very stereotypical HDR picture, which is exaggerates all the contrast, the saturation, everything else. A lot of people don't like that effect, but I happen to like it. The next one would enhance the clouds, as you can see from this particular image. Next one is a more natural effect, which I call daylight. So it's your standard daytime image. Natural, more sort of natural lighting on this one, and so on and so forth. So these are the ones which I've created, but we'll go back to the beginning and we'll start with the built-in presets. Start with the default mode, which is where it starts when you load the images in, and let's see if we can adjust it to suit. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the tone mapping box here. We could, if we wish, use the exposure fusion alternative method, but I think you'll find that there are more types of adjustment available by using the tone mapping as opposed to exposure fusion, but we'll come to that at a later date. So first of all, we look at the strength of the tone mapping. Here it's about 3/4. If we just boost that fully to the right hand side, you see that everything in the sky darkens, which is the effect that I prefer. Colour saturation, it's fairly saturated at the moment, but we can boost that just a little bit more. There we go. Tone compression, again, if we just boost that fully to the right hand side, a lot more detail is shown there, brings out all the shadows. Detail contrast, we'll boost that to the maximum. There's maximum contrast, make it as sharp as possible. Okay. Now we've got a range of lighting adjustments here. We can use the slider to lighten or darken the various different effects. But I find it's much easier just to use the box here, tick the box, and then we're set at medium at the moment. But if you want a more natural effect, just click on natural, and that's much more pleasing in my opinion. We've got natural plus. So until you find the one that you want, you can actually just do it manually. I think that looks quite nice to the eye. We've then got smoothing the highlights. All these dark areas in the cloud, they'll be smoothed out. So if we just move that across to the right hand side, as you can see, more natural looking sky now. You can move this as far to the left or as far to the right as you wish, depending on the effect that you want. We can increase the overall brightness by increasing the white point. So just move that to the right and it will brighten the whole picture considerably. Same applies to the black point. It will increase the shadow areas, make them darker. So it's very, very fine adjustments on these. We then have another range of adjustments that we can make here. We have the gamma, so we can make the whole picture darker overall or brighter overall just by moving right or left, as you can see, from one extreme to the other. But we want it to be somewhere in the middle, probably around about there. Shade darker perhaps. That's better. Colour temperature, we can increase. If we move to the right, we're going to warm it up, bring out the yellows in the picture, which is enough of to start with. If you want to cool it down, bring it back to the far left to give you the blues and the colder temperature. That looks quite nice actually. So if you set white balance on your camera to automatic, then you can adjust the white balance by adjusting the color temperature on here. Micro smoothing. This basically, if we move this to the far right, will remove the texture. So these slates that we see on the roof will be smoothed out, the cobblestones will be smoothed out. But if we want to bring that texture back, we simply just use the slider and bring it back to 0, and then we get our texture back again. There's your texture. So you got your texture in your cobblestones, your texture in your bricks, texture in your slates on the roof, and so on. I think that looks fairly pleasing. fairly natural. It's not an overdone HDR effect. We can actually smooth out the shadows a little bit. There's a slider at the bottom here, so we can do that. And that to me is a more natural looking HDR picture. So I'll be happy with that. So once you're happy, click the apply button. It's now processing that image and making those adjustments that you've made final. But prior to actually saving the picture as a finished HDR JPEG or TIFF, depending on how you save it, you still have a small range of other adjustments you can make here. For instance, there's a little bit too orange in this picture for my liking, so the beauty of this software is that you can actually adjust the colour saturation of individual colours without affecting the rest of the picture. So if we want to get rid of some of this orange and just desaturate it quite a bit, we just go to the orange slider, reduce the amount of saturation for the orange, and instantly it affects that, but it doesn't affect the blues, it doesn't affect the greens, and so on. So you've got instant colour adjustments without having the rigmarole of actually individually picking out colours in Paint Shop Pro or in Photoshop. I think I like to bring a bit more yellow in, so just boost the saturation on the yellow a little bit. We'll also, for the green lampposts as well, and the green shop fronts, we'll just boost the green. Bring that up a little bit. The blue and the aqua for the sky, we'll boost that. And I'm quite happy with that. In terms of sharpening, because it's a raw file, it hasn't been sharpened in camera. So what we'll do is we'll boost that sharpening ourselves. So we can go from none to mild, medium or strong. I think we'll go for a mild sharpening. We won't over sharpen it because we can process that later on in different software. I'm quite happy with the contrast, so we'll not bother with the contrast. And then when you're happy with that, just click done, and those changes will now be permanent. Once you've got the picture to the way you want it to look, if we move across to Save Final Image, you'll then be given the various different options. We'll call this one Tram, and it could be saved as a JPEG or as a TIFF or PNG, however you wish to save it. So this will be saved on the desktop as a file called Tram. Click Save, and that's our finished HDR file. Okay, any questions, just leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.